Welcome to Match Play, where every episode starts with a spark and ends with insight that can only come from personal experience at the highest level. Let's tee up some good conversation. Hey everybody, I'm Thad Miller. Today's guest is lifelong entrepreneur Brent Claymon, a builder, a buyer, a seller, and more importantly, a creator of equity in business and in life. From selling Pac-Van in 2006 to re-entering the industry and acquiring Tyson Onsite after his non-compete expired and selling again in 2018, Brent's journey is a masterclass in vision, timing, patience, and seeing around the corners. And like every episode of Match Play, we start with a spark, a literal match strike. When the flame burns out, I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Brent, thanks for being here. And when the flame goes out, we'll dive right in. Okay, let's light that match. Let's go.
All right.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. What's your favorite business book or podcast?
So I'm not sure it's a book, but The Founder, the McDonald's.
Oh, nice. Yes. Excellent. Yeah. Franchisor. Best golf hole you've ever played?
Probably the par 3 at Kiowa.
Okay. All right.
At the Ocean Course.
Nice. Like 16?
Yes.
Nice. All right. That's the one where
you have to hit like 3 wood, even if it's 150 yards.
That's where Calcavecchia choked it. And then college basketball or college football? What do you
college
like
basketball.
All right.
But right now I like college football.
Yeah, the Hoosiers, number 2 in the country. Best golf courses in Ireland or in Scotland?
I've not played in Ireland,
okay.
So I have
Scotland's
to say Scotland.
Winning. There we go. I love it. Love it. All right. So today's guest is Brent Claymon, a good friend, a lifelong entrepreneur. And he's started businesses, acquired competitors, made private equity and angel investments, built companies with the goal of finding a better way. His philosophy focuses on building equity, surrounding yourself with strong advisors, and creating long-term value. So thanks for being here, Brent. So you grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. Tell me about that and tell me how that kind of got you started.
Yeah, so you can imagine that the dinner conversation at our house was always about business. It was always about what happened during the day, what's going on, what opportunities are presenting themselves. And I mean, this is at 8, 9, 10 years old. I remember these conversations, and it just became our way of life.
Yeah.
And who we were as a family. It was just always about being an entrepreneur and business.
That's awesome. And then Pac-Van, that was one of the companies we were going to focus on with this. Give us a background of what that is, and how that transpired, but start with like the beginnings.
Yeah, the beginning is it would take way too long to talk about really where it came from. But the business idea was sparked out of a business that my dad had. Again, growing up, it was a portable toilet rental company.
Right. Yeah.
And during that time, my dad started renting semi-trailers for storage and called them, which are called vans. And so we called the business Pac-Van, or he called it Pac-Van, and sort of got the understanding of what we now call the 3 T's. So on every construction site, there's toilets, trash, and trailers.
Yeah.
And we were in the trailer business and the portable toilet business. And he sold that when I was in college at IU. And it was just a business that that aspect of it, the trailer business, was something that sparked an interest, and it was a little bit easier from a service standpoint. So that's really where it evolved from.
Yeah.
And my brothers and I did some business plans during college, and it was all about Pac-Van and what we're going to start after we got out.
I love it. And then with that, was selling the Pac-Van, and that propelled an opportunity. Obviously, Tyson now is a similar business. What's the story there?
Yeah, so we sold Pac-Van in 2006 and had a 5-year non-compete agreement. And because of being so entrenched in the industry, I actually got a phone call from the founder of Tyson Onsite. I was on a ski lift in Snowmass, Colorado, and I saw where his name came across my phone, and I answered it on the ski lift.
Yeah.
And because I'm an entrepreneur. And
Yeah.
I
Always working, man.
I thought might be an opportunity, and it was. They had a situation where the owner at that time had passed away, and the founder asked if we would be interested in potentially buying the business and getting back in the industry. And my answer was, absolutely.
Yeah. So you didn't start the second one. You acquired it.
Acquired it. That's
and
right.
then had grown it. Okay.
And grew it and fixed it. There was some challenges because the owner had passed away. The business needed a lot of support.
Of course.
And so that was really the objective that round.
Yeah.
Buying the business, fixing it, growing it, and then ultimately selling it. And I didn't know if it was going to take, 2 years or 20 years. And it ended up being about 6.
Okay. That's wonderful. So how did those two, obviously you knew the industry, you knew how to, obviously you knew the sauce. But how did those teach you about vision and timing and patience, really?
Yeah. So, 2 different situations.
Yeah.
Pac-Van, when it was started in 1993, I was in my early 20s.
Right.
And didn't necessarily have the mindset of, okay, when am I going to exit? Whenever I talk to entrepreneurship classes, I always focus on everyone here walked into this building and knows how to get out, right? And everyone acknowledges that. And I would say the same thing with a business, that when you enter a business, despite the fact that you think you're going to be in that business forever, and it could be a professional services business, like a dental practice, and there isn't always a forever, and there's always some endpoint. And so the one thing I learned with Pac-Van is that there was going to be an endpoint,
right?
And it isn't because of wanting to transition it to another generation. It was more about what's the best path for my family, what's the best path for the business, what's it going to take it to the next level. And we had inquiries over the years, even early on, from private equity firms, from competitors that wanted to acquire the business. And so that gave me the mindset that, this is a path that needs to be considered, but it shouldn't distract from operating the business.
Right. So
to your question, the Pac-Van transaction, it occurred when, and I have a story to tell you as well that I think is relevant, but it occurred when we finally got to the point of, in order to take it to the next level, it was going to require a significant amount of additional capital.
Sure.
And
was it more like regionalized, like you were local, and if you were going to expand across the country?
So we already had expanded across the country.
Okay.
We had 20 locations across the country, from as far west as Las Vegas and Phoenix, and in the southeast in Florida and Charlotte, and then concentrated in the Midwest with
right.
Indiana, Ohio, Illinois, Pennsylvania,
sure.
Kentucky, Tennessee. So it was really taking it from 20 locations to 200.
Yeah.
And again, we had the opportunity to transact a sale that exceeded all expectations, and it was kind of like, and I'm leading to an answer to your question. It was okay. This is game changing for us, and for the opportunity to sell the business. And if I felt the opportunity to enter the industry again was present and worthwhile, I felt like we could do it again.
Yeah.
And therefore sold the business in 2006, had a 5-year non-compete agreement, and the opportunity and the timing worked well with Tyson Onsite, and was able to re-enter the industry. And that was a completely different path. That was a fix it, grow it, and sell it. And
Got it.
our management team knew that that was the direction that we wanted to take, and to an extent, our employees did too. That's not always the best mindset for people to feel like their business is being sold and what's going to happen. But we made it very clear that it was going to be a better place for everyone, and a better opportunity for everyone, which it was.
Well, and to begin with the end in mind, like if you go into it, you came to the room, you know how you're going to get out. You got to think about that. And if you own your own business, you got to look around and go, okay, when I do leave, what is this going to look like for the new owner? And that's investments in the business. It's what does it look like when people come in? What are they going to be seeing? Look at it through the buyer's eyes, right? I mean, we talk about
Correct.
this on this podcast pretty frequently. Tell your story. You had a story.
I do. So, like I said, there were many times over the years that we were sought out by whether it was competitors or private equity groups that wanted to enter the space, or maybe that were in the space and wanted to bolt on acquisitions, and had the opportunity kind of at the midpoint between 93 and 06 that we did a process. Kind of thought, okay, maybe now's the time, and went through that process and hired an investment banking firm, and kind of did a little mini auction, and within the confines of selling business.
Right.
And we eventually got to the point where we were ready to sign a kind of a letter of intent.
Yeah.
And I was on my way to drive to Chicago to meet with the private equity firm, and it was about 9 a.m. on September 11th, 2001.
Really?
And the world changed.
Yeah.
Obviously, our deal didn't happen.
Right.
Didn't end up driving to Chicago, just turned around and
so you were going to sign it on September 11th.
That's right.
2000. Wow.
And the one thing I learned from that experience was at the time, we were rather disappointed, and frustrated, and concerned, like, what's going to happen next, and was this going to be a real impactful situation? Would we be able to sell the business for as much as they were offering, or what was going to happen next? Yeah. And interestingly, what happened next was refocused, retooled, went back, ran the business. Yeah. Continued to grow, continued to expand, continued to just do what we do. And as it turns out, 5 years later, we had another opportunity. Folks started reaching out again when things calmed down, as far as the world goes, and I ended up selling the business in 2006 for probably 40% more. Right.
Yeah. Well, and we saw that a little bit with, the real estate crisis in 2009, the, COVID that came, like, and the entrepreneurs that refocused on their business, focused on growing it, not like, obviously all of these instances affected certain businesses, certain things. But I think instead of just looking back and going, I wish I would have done that, or I wish I had that, you were like, okay, we need to reset and move forward. And I think that's probably why you got 40% more for the sales.
Yes.
That's fair to say. With that thinking, what helps entrepreneurs build equity instead of just chasing income? You talked about that in the.
Yeah. So I think that many people think they want to be an entrepreneur, and being an entrepreneur isn't just I want to check a box and I'm an entrepreneur.
Right.
You have to have, the mindset. You have to have the willingness to take risks. You have to understand your responsibility. And one of the biggest responsibilities are to the business in order to grow it. And many people, and I've spoken to entrepreneurship classes about this, because a lot of kids will say, hey, I want to start a business, but how can I pay my bills? I have to have a salary. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, well, then you might want to get a job first, because being an entrepreneur, you don't know in the beginning, especially, whether you're going to be able to take any money out of the business.
Right.
And if you do take money out of the business, you have to understand the trade-off, that it can't be reinvested to propel growth,
Yeah.
or to expand. And you also have to pay your employees, and you have to pay your bills. And so all those things come in front of you,
Yeah.
and come before you. So, my comment has always been, your focus needs to be, how do I build equity? How do I build value? It will come. The income will come. If you need it to live on, then maybe it's not the right time. Maybe there are ways to work around that, but it shouldn't be your major focus. And I know that's hard, because not everyone necessarily comes with a nest egg to be able to survive,
right,
when starting a business.
Right.
But being an entrepreneur isn't necessarily starting a business. You can be an entrepreneur within organizations. Right. And it is, like I said, a mindset. And but when it comes to the trade-off between building equity or creating value and income, it just needs to be really understood.
That's a great point. No, that's an incredible point. And I think I got some great advice when I was starting my business from a friend, because I went to him to say, hey, do you want to help me as I'm raising capital to start this? Do you want to be a partner in this? And he asked me, well, who's going to be doing all the work? And I'm like, well, I'm going to be doing all the work. And his advice to me, which is some of the best advice I ever got, was like, don't ask anybody to input if they're not going to be providing the work. Because once this does take off, you're going to be resentful to me, because all I did was give you a little bit of money at the beginning, and now I'm taking from something you're doing all the work. And I just thought that was great advice. That helped me a ton. You obviously have to get investment outside, and maybe it's better to get it from a bank than maybe from a friend or something like that, because you have agreements in place on how you're going to pay it back. But I thought that was great advice, because I would have hated it to still be paying him 16 years later for an investment he gave to me for a percentage of the business, even though sometimes you have to do that.
I would add to that the doing the work, I view that, maybe using a different word, is they have to bring value.
Yeah, exactly. And there you go. Yeah.
It's really important that whether it's an investor, whether it's a bank, whether it's a partner, they have to bring value to the to the business. And it's not just the money. The money is important. Yeah. But there's got to be something else.
Yeah, no doubt about it. The value, you're right. That's great. Because he would have been an external, he wouldn't have had anything to do with my business. It was just money. And that if he's just giving me money and not value, there's a difference for sure. That's well said. Okay. Back 9 here. We're making the turn. You emphasized listen more, talk less. How has that shaped your deal making and leadership?
Yeah. So another story.
Yeah.
When I was looking to hire some senior management folks, I was initially, early on in my 20s, I'm wanting to hire someone that I think is going to be my buddy, or that I'm going to, go out for a beer with, and someone who's, really, charismatic. Yeah. And maybe all of those things are incorporated if I'm trying to hire a salesperson. But I was really trying to hire leaders. And I learned from someone who I hired kind of early on that was very cerebral, very intelligent, but kind of quiet. And I learned that absorbing what people have to say and listening can provide you such an advantage. And I think about it now today, if you're trying to, whatever it is, buy a house, listening to the seller or the seller's broker that kind of tells you a little bit about the reasons of why they're selling could spark some kind of path or opportunity that can give you an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's important to just shut your mouth and listen to what people have to say, and you will learn a lot about whether it's, the business. It just so important to understand the dynamics of whatever the situation is.
Right.
And you can't really do that without listening.
Yeah, there's no doubt when it's not just the financial decision to make it. You also have the emotional decision to make it, and you got to go with your gut. I mean, there's no doubt that there's a reason you have to get all of those things in line. It can't just because it's a great deal you do it. It's got to make sense on all fronts.
Yeah, and emotion,
listening.
Emotion sometimes gets in the way.
Yeah,
and
no doubt about it.
You want to run really fast,
and
you want to be this. You already are as an entrepreneur. A lot of times, a type A. Entrepreneurs tend to run fast, and slowing down a little bit is always good.
You're right. No doubt about it. You had a great story about a tennis player. I know you coach tennis, high school tennis, but you had a tennis player story you wanted to say. This is a bit of a sports with this podcast. Let's hear it.
So I coached tennis for 21 years and high school tennis. And early on, again, I was younger and everyone wants to win.
Yeah.
I'm very competitive, whether it's in business or athletics or, with myself. It's something that's winning is important. It's not everything, but it certainly is usually the goal when you're playing sports.
Absolutely.
But I take a little bit of a different mindset in coaching. But the story is early on, I was watching one of it was a doubles match, and I was kind of reacting in a way that my body language wasn't great, and whenever the players on my team made a mistake, I was pointing it out. And I was getting frustrated. The players were getting frustrated. And after the match, one of the players came up to me and said, "Can I talk to you, coach?" And I'm like, "Of course." So we sat down, and
this is a high school kid coming to you as a grown man.
Yes. And it was a young lady, and there were kind of tears in her eyes, and I'm like, what's up? What's wrong? And she's like, can I talk openly? And I'm like, of course. And she said,
"This takes guts."
Yeah. I don't know how to really say this, but I need you to know that I get really motivated when you tell me what I need to do, and I get really demotivated when you tell me what I'm doing wrong, because I know when I've hit the ball out of bounds. I know when I've made a mistake, and it doesn't help when you tell me that I've done that exact thing,
right,
and that I'm making mistakes, and I just looked at her and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I am so sorry."
Yeah.
And it was from that day forward that I realized, again, back to the listening thing, listen more, pay attention, and focus on the positive, focus on how to help someone do something right. And I translate that to business now as well, because again, hammering someone on the mistakes they made they know.
Yeah. It's funny you say this, because I had Coach Matt Doherty, who used to be a college basketball coach. He does coaching now for executives. He talked about this very thing. He said Dean Smith was really good about pointing out the positive things, and he was always hammering on the negative things until he adjusted. And you're right. And in today's environment where staff is critical, there's a shortage of staff in a lot of industries, and I think that's a great point. And I think we can get into that. And I think it's important when you're considering a sale in the future, your staff is such a critical piece. If you can say, "Hey, I have a long-term staff, we support each other, we've got common values, we're moving forward," you got to do that, because who knows what's going on negatively in their life when they leave you at 5:00, right? If you're just adding to that might force them out into doing something else.
And it's not going to help the business.
No, it affects you more than anybody, really.
Right. It's all about creating that culture.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that ties in with our last podcast with Coach. That's great. Okay. Last question. And this we're switching to, what should entrepreneurs understand about earnouts, post-sale roles, and contingencies before they sign a deal?
Yeah, I think there's not a standard answer to that question. I personally have never experienced an earnout,
Right.
but there has been holdbacks.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, therefore, things like making sure that taxes have been paid, or some of the things that
Revenue stays stable, things that qualify.
But sometimes that's more of an earnout type situation. But the point that I would make to people to understand is make sure that you're going in with your eyes open. Sometimes an earnout or contingency type compensation sound great, and sometimes they work out great. But the reality is, if you're selling your business, in most cases, you're not necessarily going to be in the same control position that you were before. So how things transpire, possibly you can have some involvement in it, but it's going to be different. If you're owned by a private equity firm, even if you're still the president of the company, for a certain period of time, the reality is you're now accountable to someone else. We're all accountable to someone in some regard, no matter if you own the entire business, if you have a bank supporting you, or if you have partners, you're always accountable to people. You're accountable to your employees as well.
But at least you have a little more control at that point.
Control.
I feel like.
And so I always say, just don't let the prospects of a big carrot cloud your mind, and because things may or may not actually play out that way. Sometimes you have to do it. Sometimes you have to be satisfied with what you got, I guess, at the closing day.
Point. I think that's the greatest point. Yeah, you have to be, that's got to fill your bucket, and the rest maybe is icing on top, right? But the contingencies, I think it's important. You mentioned earlier having great advisors to kind of really help you understand what you're agreeing to.
That's correct.
Don't get too lost in, this is the deal of the century. Well, it may not be, because you still have things you have to do.
And there also are different stages in your life. If you're selling your business as a retirement strategy, it probably is inconsistent to have, a 5 or 10 year time horizon to get proceeds, or upside, or contingency, or earnout. If you're selling your business maybe earlier on, and it's because you need to, in order to really have it grow, maybe there's an entrepreneurial path that it makes sense.
Yeah.
And the earnout is really more about just owning a smaller piece of a bigger pie.
Sure.
So there's lots of ways to look at it, but just going with your eyes open.
Yeah, and having people walk you through, what does this look like?
What does it really mean?
What does this really mean? I think that's a great component. Okay, before we wrap up, this match play always ties back to golf. Brent, we've played some golf together. What golf tip is going through your head right now? I know it's starting to get cold out, and you've got eyes on going elsewhere to play. What are some of your tips going into winter golf?
Sure. So it's really interesting, and I kind of manage my golf game like I do a business, and hold myself accountable. I like to kind of scratch down, on the scorecard, statistics.
Right.
How many greens in regulation, how many fairways, how many putts. And just doing that, I've seen other people do it. I'm like, do you actually look at it, or what do you do with that?
Right.
And so I like to hold myself accountable. And I notice that the times that I just go out and play and don't really pay attention, sometimes I play okay, but a lot of times it's like I'm not really super happy with how I played. And so I think it's more about discipline. And so it's not necessarily a golf tip, but maybe it's a mindset, and I translate it to business as well. But golf has taught me a lot about discipline. And if you get really frustrated and throw clubs, or check out mentally on a golf hole, it isn't going to help you. Your next shot is, you can make a mistake, in tennis, kind of hitting a bad shot, but it still could be in, and it still could come back to you, and you still have a second chance in many cases. But in golf, you hit it out of bounds, you've hit it out of bounds. And,
right.
And to be, frustrated and mad, and then go up with this mindset of, not even thinking about your shot. You're just thinking about how mad you are. And then you end up, making a double or a triple on a hole. What have you done?
Right.
And
right.
the best golfers we know are so mentally tough.
Yeah.
Or any athlete.
They don't compound the error. Like if you hit a bad shot, you don't get mad and hit another bad shot.
Right.
Or take a risky shot. Sometimes when you hit a really terrible shot, it puts you out of position to hit the next ideal shot. Instead of just getting it back in play, making your bogey and moving on, fools like us try and,
That's correct.
We turn a 4 into an 8 instead of, a 5.
So discipline and holding myself accountable.
There we go.
Those are the things.
I like that. Well, thanks to Brent Claymon. This has been great. Great tips. You're very successful in what you do. And this is really great perspective from the different angles. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to Match Play. We'll see you next round.